Hello, and welcome to another episode of History with the Rogue Professor. I'm the Rogue Professor, Tyreek Johnson, and today we will be talking about the South Carolina Negro Seamen Act. So first, let's answer the most obvious question. What was the South Carolina Negro Seamen Act? I'm glad you asked that. In 1822, South Carolina passed a law that mandated any free black seaman be arrested upon arrival in the port of Charleston and be detained in the Charleston City Jail for the duration of the time the ship was in port at the expense of the ship's captain. If that captain refused to pay, then the individual could be sold into slavery to settle the debt. As you can imagine, this caused a lot of problems both internationally and with the Constitution, but that's a discussion for another podcast. Today, we're going to focus on the immediate cause for passing the act and the underlying theme known as moral contagion. In 1822, a former slave turned free carpenter named Denmark Vesey was hanged for attempting to incite slave insurrection. Vesey, who was a preacher at the Emmanuel AME Church, known as Mother Emanuel, the very same church where Dylann Roof murdered 9 parishioners in 2015, used his status as a free man and a preacher to recruit enslaved individuals into a planned revolt. The plan was after killing their owners, they were going to burn the city of Charleston, steal ships, and sail to Haiti. Now, a few days before the revolt was to happen, an enslaved man who happened to belong to the mayor of Charleston revealed the plan. Revolt was prevented. But the question Charleston now faced was, how could this happen, and how can we keep it from happening again? They believed their enslaved property was inherently good, and they appreciated the lives that they were provided for. They could not understand how they could have turned, or what could have made them want to revolt against their beloved masters, their beloved owners. So they must have been morally corrupted from the outside. Now, that means the idea of moral contagion is that somehow the morality of slaves have been infected with the idea of freedom. As proof of this, they held up the free man, carpenter, sailor who planned and organized the plot, Denmark Vesey. Interesting enough, the idea that enslaved persons were unhappy was never in question. So in order to prevent another moral contagion from infecting their enslaved population, they decided that they had to keep away outside influence. So despite the fact that this entire insurrection was planned by a 55-year-old man who had lived both as an enslaved and a freeman for the majority of his life in Charleston, they assigned that blame to outsiders. The simplest way to prevent that moral infection of the idea of freedom: ban or arrest any free black person that came into the port of Charleston. So that is our 3 minutes. That is our podcast. And thank you so much. Join us again.